Hey, HannahMouse1 here. Welcome to another devlog for A Farmer's Life, the farming game that I'm making in Scratch. In this video, I'll make it so that you can actually cook all of the recipes that I added in the previous episode. The first thing I did was to make it so that the locked recipes can become unlocked through gameplay. The first way that this occurs is through upgrading the restaurant building, which unlocks the second basic recipe collection. I created all of the UI behind the restaurant upgrade and coded it in so that you can actually upgrade the darn thing, which was actually pretty easy because the code already exists for the barn and fishing hut building upgrades. The other type of recipe that can become unlocked are NPC recipes. These require a certain level of friendship with the NPC, which increases whenever you complete a request for said NPC. For now, I might add more ways of upgrading this in the future, and I had to code it so that when this friendship level changes, it checks whether or not any of the recipes need to become unlocked based on which NPC you've increased the friendship level with and what value you've increased the friendship level to. With that done, I had to figure out what ingredients I wanted to be used in each and every recipe and to make the UI to display these. Each recipe can have up to 3 ingredients, and when I decided on the quantities, I considered how late in the game you're likely to start getting this item, with early game items requiring quite massive amounts and late game items only requiring small amounts. And for the UI design, it's consistent with the UI that displays ingredients required when crafting at one of the workspaces. As I was doing this, there was one more ingredient that I felt like I needed to add, and that was rice noodles for the spring roll and chicken chow mein recipes. I created an icon for this and actually wound up scrapping and redoing my initial design because I felt like it was too indistinguishable from the rice item at first, but otherwise I needed to create a name label for it and add it to the inventory, then sort out the UI and code behind crafting it at the refinery workspace. And with that done, I could finish the process of making all of the recipes. I then got the UI to display when you mouse over an unlocked but incomplete recipe, positioning it so that it fits with all 3 ingredients being displayed side by side. I had to make a list to denote this recipe information. For each recipe, there's a corresponding list item that states how many ingredients are in the recipe, and for each ingredient, which item and how much of it are required, with each of these values being separated with an underscore. But a small thing I realised is that this recipe UI causes the existing back button to no longer fit, so I made a version for the restaurant pages that uses the smaller of the 2 fonts, and I created a script that takes the recipe code from the list I made earlier for whatever recipe is moused over and decodes it into a list of ingredients and quantities to make these values easier to reference elsewhere in the code. And using this list, I was able to make it so that the UI can check which ingredients we're talking about and to display how much of these ingredients you have in your inventory. This wasn't too hard to implement. It's fairly similar to how it's displayed in other parts of the game, the biggest difference being that there can be 3 ingredients, whereas for any crafting recipe there's a maximum of 2. I also used this list to make it so that you can click the recipe to cook them if you have enough of each ingredient. And I made it so that when you complete a recipe, it checks whether you've thereby completed the collection associated with the recipe by cycling through all of the recipes in the collection and checking if any of them are still incomplete or not. And if they are all complete, then it updates a list to record the collection as complete. Using this info, I coded in all of the recipe collection rewards. Some of these were super straightforward to complete, like the ones which increase the ore in the quarry nodes or decrease the crafting or crop growth times. The hardest ones to add were the ones that increase the value of certain types of product, like tier 1 or tier 2 crops, animal products or fish. To do this, I had to create a list where each item in the game has a corresponding list item, and in this item there is a list of letters and numbers that indicate to the game what type of item they are. Using this info, the various shops and the request board can check the type of item that they're setting the value of, then increase the value if necessary. I also then made versions of the collection buttons with a tick on them to indicate that the collection is complete. It's the same tick that the completed recipes and lab upgrades bear, and I added a dark circle around it to make it pop, and I got these buttons to switch to the correct costumes based on whether or not the recipe is complete. Finally, I created UI that says click to cook that displays whenever you mouse over an incomplete recipe and have all the necessary ingredients in your inventory. And that's all I've got done for this week, so thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you did. It lets me know that this is something that you want to see more of. Join the Discord, link down below, and I'll see you next week with another video. Bye!